Well, my friends, I think we got bigger things to worry about. Yeah? You want to know what those bigger things are? Jack, what if I were to tell you that you, as a, I don't want to put words in your mouth. I understand it's probably obvious, but you're a big Trump supporter.
I was a Trump supporter, yeah.
Absolutely, yeah. What if they drone strike you?
You know, the thing for me is when I turn on MSNBC.
So where we're going, everybody. We got a story.
And I watch Nicolle Wallace, and you hear some of the words that are coming out of these folks' mouths. And it's amazing to me because for all of 2020, this was the defund police movement, and the cops in this country have it out for the little guy, and they're proto-fascists of a police state, the harbingers of totalitarianism, and we need to get rid of them. You even have people saying abolish the entire not just private prisons, but the entire prison system. But then they'll turn around and say, except for any of you guys in a red hat, I want all of you down at Guantanamo Bay. I want waterboarding. I want drone strikes. Everything that's been done to Al Qaeda should be done to you.
And this is what brings us to the actual segment and why I asked you that question. From The Blaze, MSNBC host suggests killing American citizens with drone strikes. And another story, which you brought up, Jack, from The Nation. I'm for abolition, and yet I want the Capitol rioters in prison. They're not for abolition. They are tribalists. They view you as an evil other who must be caged or exterminated. And I know that might sound extreme, but this woman on MSNBC literally said, when we deal with terrorists overseas, we drone strike these people like American citizen Anwar al-Awlaki. And then they go on to talk about Americans. What do you think they're referring to? Let me show you the story from The Blaze. They say, during a discussion regarding domestic terror, MSNBC anchor Nicolle Wallace floated the idea of the U.S. government killing American citizens with drone strikes, something they have done before, several times, in fact, under Obama. Wallace brought up the National Terror Advisory System Bulletin that was released to all law enforcement by the Department of Homeland Security last week. The bulletin, which is in effect until April 30th, warns the DHS allegedly received information that there is a threat of ideologically motivated violent extremists with objections to the exercise of governmental authority and the presidential transition, as well as other perceived grievances fueled by false narratives, could continue to mobilize, to incite, or commit violence. Wallace notes, quote, there's a bulletin released to all law enforcement earlier this week that there is until the end of April a persistent threat of domestic extremism. She goes on to mention that basically what they already said, that the COVID restrictions are unnecessary, all of those ideologies pushed by Trump. The Deadline White House host then said, but my question for you is around incitement. We had a policy, and it was very controversial. It was carried out under the Bush years and under the Obama years of attacking terror at its root, of going after and killing, and in the case of Anwar al-Awlaki, an American Yemeni American, with a drone strike for the crime of inciting violence, inciting terror, Wallace said. Mitch McConnell was in the Senate then. He was in the Senate after 9/11 too. How does Mitch McConnell, who understands that the way you root out terror is to take it on, in the case of Islamic terror, kill those who incite it? How does he not vote to convict someone that he said on the House floor incited an insurrection? The Blaze then quotes a very poor and stupid journalist, Luke Rudkowski.
What the heck? Hey.
The Blaze then shows Luke's tweet where he says, so they are pretty much saying they have to stop incitement of violence by inciting violence themselves.
Yes.
This is MSNBC's Nicolle Wallace. MSNBC's Nicolle Wallace suggests we use domestic drone strikes on Americans as a solution to lockdown protesters. It may sound extreme, but please listen to that quote. She says, Mitch McConnell understands the way you root out terrorism is to take it on, saying in the previous sentence, killing, in the case of Anwar al-Awlaki, an American Yemeni American, with a drone strike. There we are.
I like how no one on MSNBC even batted an eye as she compared anti-lockdown protesters to terrorists. Are you freaking kidding me? And this is, again, Nicolle Wallace, a former Bush spokesperson. And it's very interesting that she brought up Anwar al-Awlaki because that's one American citizen. Abdurrahim al-Awlaki is yet another one. He's a 16-year-old American citizen that was killed under, of course, Barack Obama's drone bombing. He was 16 years old. And then Donald Trump, who personally called for a raid, under his raid, killed his daughter, who was 8 years old. So we have literally the entire assassination of this family. And a lot of people I remember when this was being codified. I remember when this was first introduced, and I was screaming on the top of my lungs. hey, this is extremely dangerous. We cannot give the right to kill anyone that power. We can't give that to the presidency. He can't be judge, jury, and executioner. This is dangerous, and it's going to turn against the American people. And now, today, we have them on national television telling you that it's a good thing.
Abdul Rahman al-Awlaki was the American people. He was a 16-year-old American. He was born in Denver, Colorado, and he lived in San Diego.
He was a teenager.
Apparently,
16.
he was looking for his grandfather and went to visit Yemen. Yeah. And Obama, for some reason, ordered a drone strike on a civilian restaurant, killing this 16-year-old.
Yep.
Why?
Yep.
They said it was an accident. We were targeting someone else. Did anyone then ask, why did you drone strike a civilian restaurant, even if it was to get this target?
In the mainstream media, no. But, of course, we at We Are Change, we did. We went after Robert Gibbs. We went after Obama's spokesperson, his right-hand man, and we cornered him. And we asked him a number of times, why'd you do it? Why'd you do it? He finally snapped back. And you can see this in the We Are Change video when you type in We Are Change Robert Gibbs. He snapped back. He said he should have had a better father. That was the official justification when the Obama administration was even denying it happened.
Here's my favorite thing is that Obama had the disposition matrix, which was informally known as the kill list. And I think it was Debbie Wasserman Schultz you asked.
I was like,
she's like the top Democrat for the DNC or whatever. And she was like, what are you talking about? That doesn't exist.
No, I asked her, I was like, how do you feel about the president potentially handing this power to kill anyone at any moment to potentially someone like Mitt Romney? She was like, you're crazy. This doesn't exist. What are you talking about? Peter King, a Republican, called me an absolute lunatic and a moron for even believing that there was such a thing. No one even wanted to talk about this thing. And then now it's here, and now it's codified, and now it's being promoted as some kind of great, amazing, glorious idea to deal with anti-lockdown protesters. This is crazy.
I mean, that's real. Like, I mean, obviously, I can't talk too much about my, actual.
You worked in intelligence.
Service, but that's very, very real.
The story from the New York Times was that Obama was given what looked like baseball cards of statistics and like age and a breakdown and threat level, and then he would be like, "Oh, kill him!" And kill him.
More like the NSC, not necessarily Obama himself. Yeah. He would eventually have to sign off, but it would be the NSC. Going up, and in some cases,
that's the National Security Council,
which is attached to the White House. They're in the EOB building, but it's a White House organ in a sense. And the NSC was greatly expanded under Barack Obama for purposes like this.
And Barack Obama personally signed off on a lot of these drone strikes, personally executing them. And he even came out a couple weeks ago saying, I kind of regret being as aggressive as I was with foreign policy because I was trying to impress the Republicans so I could look tough in front of them. That sounds like a cop-out, to say the least, especially when you have blood on your hands and you killed American citizens because of your signature. When you killed American teenagers based on your signature. And again, Donald Trump started his presidency not in a good way either, because he also personally signed off on a raid that killed his 8-year-old daughter.
That's right.
Yeah.
The 8-year-old sister of Abdul Rahman al-Awlaki and the daughter of Anwar.
And not only were these, in some cases, U.S. citizens, but in other and you mentioned the restaurant, right? The collateral damage in some of these things. There were funerals, weddings. I mean, these are clearly.
Wait. One last thing. I need to add to this point, because when we look at these policies, Syria, Iran, Afghanistan, Libya, they're all failed. But specifically, when it comes to the drone bombing campaign, it came out through many reports that over 90% of the drone bombs landed on unintended people, killed innocent people that were not the intended targets. So this is the program that they want to bring back, that they want to use in the United States with a 90% fail list? Are you kidding me?
I got to add two very important things here, Luke. The first is, you were trying to call this out a decade ago. Yeah. I mean, this is 9 years ago.
2004.
Where you have people who in the government who are doing this. And the fear was that as they started killing American citizens, it would eventually find its way to American soil. The government's been empowered to do it. And now here we are.
Yeah, I mean, ever since 2004, I was saying the war on terror is going to be a war on the people, and that's exactly what we're seeing. These emergency laws being used now turn against the American people. The only people who got this information out there, got my videos out there, were individuals like Glenn Greenwald. Were the only few individuals that were willing to share these videos, these confrontations with Robert Gibbs, with Debbie Wasserman Schultz, with Peter King, and all these other individuals, as the mainstream media stayed silent on this issue and even denied the fact that it it existed.
And now the other point I wanted to make is that we recently heard from Ken Cuccinelli that Nancy Pelosi wanted crew-served machine guns in
Correct.
D.C.
Yes.
What you need to understand about the psychotic request is that, listen, as most people who are listening probably know, and many who are not big gun people might not know all that well, it tends to be that those who are trying to pass gun control laws know nothing about guns. And it becomes particularly dangerous when they try wielding them. Because you end up with dumb people saying things like fully semi-automatic, which is meaningless, or Nancy Pelosi saying,
Automatic
"Can
clips.
we get automatic crew-served machine guns in a civilian jurisdiction?"
Yikes.
You know what happens when you fire a machine gun? Okay, let me ask you, what kind of bullet machine gun does she want? Well, if they're crew-served, they're probably going to be what, like NATO rounds, or what, 5.56? She's certainly not saying 50 BMG full auto in DC, is she?
I think she was, yeah.
Regardless.
At least
Kind of
7.62.
vague on that.
I don't think she knows what she's talking about.
Let's say 7.62,
At
right?
least 7.62s with the MT40s, M60s.
And
yeah.
will those go through a person?
Well, typically they're designed, if you're talking about the 50 cal, that's designed as an anti...
It's to kill a building.
That's anti-armor, right? So that's
Okay, but
anti-armor.
I'm just
Not even
just
people.
answer the question, Jack.
You never,
will a
ever
7.62
supposed to
go
use these
through a
for...
person?
They'll go through many people.
Yes, and then what's behind those people?
More people.
And what's behind those people?
More people. And their children and their families.
And cars and buildings
cars
and dogs. If
it's a
she
city.
actually got this is what these people, they don't care about
Well,
you.
actually, though, at Biden's inauguration, that wouldn't necessarily have been true because I was there. But you know who wasn't there? Anybody else. Right?
Yep.
buildings are still
You know,
there.
Nailed
the
it.
buildings there, and, you know, of course, all my coworkers, thank God, were, you know, everybody was safe. But they locked that thing down so much that this was like a scene out of the Hunger Games, which I was saying even before Lady Gaga got up with the actual Mockingjay on her dress, that there was...
It did look like the Mockingjay.
It really looked like the Mockingjay. It 100% looked like the Mockingjay. And you know, the capital has won. The rebels have been defeated. A nation mourns.
Yeah.
And you would look out onto the national lawn, and it was empty.
Yeah.
There were nobody there. It was one or two rows of like a few, you know, dignitaries, and then media, and then just grass. And then so they decided to put up these little miniature American flags and state flags and different things to make it look like there was something there because, you know, remember, of course, this was the huge controversy in the early days of the Trump administration about, you know, how many people did he have? Did he have more than Obama? And Sean Spicer is going through the numbers and all. But with Biden, there was nobody there.
Well, they wouldn't let anybody go.
Right, you couldn't get there.
you
Right,
weren't
I
allowed.
had to. So my studio was right there on Constitution Ave. So I was there for Jan 6th. I was there for Jan 20th. And that week, the week of inauguration, for me to get through, it was complete military lockdown, not just on the National Mall or around the Capitol building like it is now. Right now, that was blocks and blocks out. You had to go through military checkpoints. I had to go through TSA level Secret Service screening. You know, the idea where they're going through your bag, they're patting you down, they're wanding you. I had to have my media pass, my media credentials, and a list that I was on stating that I was an essential worker. This was the building. And by the way, if you were taking pictures out there, if you were up, you know, hey, let me just record some of this, seeing as I am here in a media capacity, that you were being hounded off the street. Hey, I said you were going to that building. Get to that building. You know, well, I'm recording this for my job. This is actually my work. You better get in there before, or we're going to revoke your credentials. Like, well, you didn't grant me my credentials, right? You know, but that's the level that it went to, even if you were just doing your job out there, trying to show people what it was like on Inauguration Day.
It's always just following orders, from the lowest scale of just kind of jamming you up at a checkpoint to the atrocities. I hear stories about National Guardsmen in D.C. who are extremely demoralized by what's going on, but it's not like they're going to do anything.
Whether or
about
not
it.
being forced to sleep in parking lots.
But it's remarkable to me that they could literally have as Time Magazine put it, cabal, put them in a parking garage with one bathroom and one power outlet and no internet or anything like that, and say sleep on the concrete, and they're like, yes, sir. It's I gotta admit, the first thing is it's actually admirable that the Guardsmen are willing to endure this in the name of doing right by our country. But it's shocking to me that people would actually follow the orders, and I don't know how else to say it. But this is probably why I would
Well, it's actually,
never enlist.
I will say this, that shows a failure of leadership on the officer corps, right? That when you're an officer, and I was an officer, you are a leader of your soldiers, your troops, your sailors, whichever it may be, guardians, I think this is for Space Force.
Space Force Guardians.
So if I'm in a situation where I know my people are being asked to sleep in a parking garage, you know, I can understand going in there on a movement and they said, hey, let's be here for a little bit. You're asking me to sleep in there? No. That's if I'm an 02 and I'm an 03, captain, etc., or lower. You are going out there, and I'm on the phone with my major. I'm on the phone with my lieutenant colonel. I'm saying, hey, what's going on? This is unacceptable. This is completely inappropriate. Is this mission essential? Is it mission essential for us to have to be in here or not? You got to take care of your people.
And it wasn't.
Of course
and
not.
26,000 people listened and did what they were told. A lot of the back blue people are like, they're going to not listen to all these unconstitutional orders. And I'm like, you have no idea what you're talking about.
no.
And you have no sense of reality or understanding of history. 26,000 National Guard troops over what? A threat alert? Where did the threat alert come from? Was there any legitimate
Every
threats?
time we pushed down
Obviously
on it,
not.
they couldn't
Yeah.
give us any
And nothing.
information about
But this
a
is
credible,
another big thing
imminent
here.
threat.
It's going to cost the taxpayers $500 million to pay for all that
saw
security. Close to $500 million of our tax dollars is going for this security theater state.
No.
That I know we have different understanding of this, but it is what it is right now. It's a big security state. There's some troops standing behind for other reasons and other purposes. We could talk about and speculate about that later. But $500 million spent on that. I want a refund. I want my money back.
No $2,000 checks, folks.
I got a question. I got a question for you, Jack. So the other day, Luke's made references to the men who stare at goats several times. Are you familiar with that story?
I've seen it like a million years ago, but yeah.
So it was actually a nonfiction book, I think, in
Right.
2004 about this like program they did. They tried doing psychic
Jedi.
operations, the Jedi and stuff like that.
Yes.
It was called, I think it was called like the Stargate Project. Now in the movie, when it opens, they talk about how this guy came to actually be running this psychic, unit or whatever.
Right.
And they said that when he was deployed to Vietnam, they land and then one of the soldiers gets shot and he sees this woman running through the field and he says, "What are you doing? Shoot!" And then all of the men start shooting and they all aimed high. And in the movie, they say they found out that fresh recruits don't want to shoot anybody and often either subconsciously or intentionally miss. And so they're all shooting high and missing this woman. And then she shoots the guy Bill and he falls down. And then he has a vision of using the gentle nature of their men as their strength or something. But what was interesting to me was this idea that fresh recruits don't want to shoot somebody. I'm wondering if that's true or if you've heard
that
anything
actually
similar.
is true, and I'm surprised you don't know. Do you know how the DoD was able to overcome that?
Human targets.
First-person shooters.
Wow.
Human targets and
Yep.
first-person shooters were some of the ways that they
Psychological
this came
tricks
out
that they used during training.
of Vietnam because. And this is back, I remember this was during the draft, so a lot of people that were forced to be there, they realized that you had to switch from the stationary, ring targets that you would have on the shooting range to silhouettes, to make it look like a person, to condition you to be able to pull that trigger to not aim high. Wow. Some of the original first-person shooters actually came out of DoD programs.
I heard that before.
And this was also done to be able to start conditioning you that, it's okay, this is normal, this is fine, because up until that point in human history, it had never been done before, this idea that on for kids, right, that we let kids play first-person shooters, and that you're going to be conditioned already from playing these games that's what you do. And now when people go into the military, you're expecting it. There's an expectation that, I'm going to deploy and I get to shoot people and I get to kick in doors, and that's what joining the military means. And so that's why, you're asking, are they going to follow the laws? You understand, right? We've conditioned people to the understanding that joining the military means I get to do these things.
Yeah,
So
they broke them down and built them in a way where they will always follow those orders.
Thanks for checking out this clip from the Timcast IRL podcast. We do the show live Monday through Friday at 8 p.m., so come back to check us out when we go live. Don't forget to subscribe, hit the like button, hit the notification bell, and we are also available on all podcast platforms for free if you want to listen to us there. Thanks for hanging out, and we will see you all next time.